invitation is that we all enter in this space of sharing, and actually when we envisioned this, like the intent was to really reflect or be together in this space that has been emerging in sand collectively in the field, in which there is the movement of dropping in, the movement towards embracing everything that is part of this. Nothing is excluded, nothing is pushed away, nothing is judged, which to me is if we have to name something, the feminine, that is the feminine that embraces all, the pain, the discomfort, the breakthrough, and the breakdown, the heartbreak. So, and all of you have been beautiful teachers embodying that movement, that is movement really in the collective. So my invitation would be to maybe each one of you can begin by sharing something about your own journey or your offering that helps us collectively move in that space with deeper honesty, deeper authenticity, vulnerability. And again, the feminine, when we refer to the feminine, I want to make sure it's not a man or a woman, it's the feminine within each and every one of us. And let's be spontaneous and just flow. So if any one of you feels like imposed that you want to share in whatever form that might take, feel free to do that. So, Vera, would you like to maybe start and just share something about what's present for you in this moment and your own journey of deepening?
And first of all, I want to say how beautiful it is to have this different kind of structure, to be in circle with all of you, and how that in itself also feels so precious to me. My path has been one of lots of heartbreak, and has been a devotional one, where like everyone else, maybe to some degree, I went into this game to get better, and to heal, and to improve myself in some way. And it's been anything but. I've become, it's just been like a perpetual breaking down, and from feeling more and more of everything, which includes so much more pain than I ever imagined would be digestible for this organism. My friend Mirabai Starr has this wonderful thing to say: the spiritual life is not about salvation, it's about annihilation. And I feel like my edges lately have been the place where it's corroding, where I'm being worn down more and more, and I resist, and all of that resistance, that sometimes there's a violence against my own resistance. Like, okay, everything is allowed, but I just can't resist it. I have to like really surrender. And so I feel like part of what's been showing up for me is how do I really like shift out of any violence within myself. If it's resistance, that's okay. If it's awkwardness and discomfort and things that are really not cool or graceful or spiritual, like how to really hold those things and be present with them and not to turn away from that place in myself. I also want to say that being here is beautiful because all the spiritual texts, all of the spiritual traditions have been more or less created by, white dudes. Or not white dudes, sometimes it would be Indian dudes, but dudes nevertheless, usually celibate dudes, who would have a particular process and it would lead them kind of far away. A lot of the spiritual processes were happening somewhere far away in not in householder lives. And so I think being in the presence of you women who are in the female body, it's very curious to me, your processes, how bringing it down off the mountain looks like. What do these spiritual maturation and spiritual initiation processes look like in ordinary human lives? So that's where I'm at the moment.
All this is the body of the divine. All these faces, all the stories are the stories that are contained in the divine and they express as the divine. Somebody a couple of days ago was asking me, what is love? Love is the sum up of any contradictions, of any polarities or any opposite. When you feel your heart full of hate or jealousy or envy or negativity, or ideas is very soft and tender, and you play with the child, the sum up of all the reflections in its totality, it's love. And in this process of embodying this love, you meet so many different shades. And some are more pleasant and some are not pleasant. And I totally agree with you. And I love you for your courage always. That is a process of annihilation, but yet, strangely, it's also at the same time of celebration. Because this annihilation is the becoming so one with everything, so one with your sadness, so one with the hate, so one with anything that is arising, that they dissolve all into nothingness, all into silence, to spring out again as all this beautiful diversity, this beautiful individuality. There is not a way. Your way is your life. Life is doing it. And also when we are feeling desperate or lost or fragmented and separated, that is the way in which we know love, because we have to come to know all the sides of love. So your life as it is the way in which you're coming to know love and to embodying it. I love the metaphor of the Smashan, of the funerary pyre, in which you are a devotee to the mother and you let the mother burn and burn and burn in you any sense of separation, any sense of a me, the fire never gets burned. You become that fire that is a fire of love. And then you start to shine it in your life. Simply breathing, walking, talking, touching, making love. Living a very ordinary life. Because that is the miracle. Our humanity is the highest point of God. But do we dare to meet all our humanity? Do we dare to meet all these contradictions and polarities? If this is possible, then this empty light shines through the form, is the form, moves as the form. And this is all you meet around you. Emptiness, nothingness, is not the absence of something, is the fullest.
If I may, I just wonder if you feel like reflecting for a moment on your own journey, because I know you had a teacher, your teacher was a man,
Yeah.
and the path was very much, maybe you can, I don't know what was the path, but I'm just curious, like, you as a woman, how did you find your way as having a man teacher and finding your own expression, and if you can reflect on that movement of dropping into the...
What I realize is that I'm not a woman, and that the mother is the vibration of this emptiness. Simply, they're not separated. And I discovered that for sure through, not always, but sometimes through male form, this is expressed more through an intellectual clarity, and sometimes through female forms, this is taking more the shape of a falling in the perception of things and dissolving. Like, I would say that the journey of this form has been particular in the sense that there was not conscious seeking. I didn't even know that awakening existed. All I knew since I was a child was really a love for God. So prayer has been my way. And when this love for God brought me outside or close to the borders of what I thought to be, then the desire for a guide arrived. And I didn't do anything to look for it. And it arrived by itself. And what I saw in that empty mirror was all my faces. The sense of being a woman died. The sense of being a human being died. And then, strangely, you become a human being again, but from another perspective. Is the true self that then meets the form and your humanity. If I could summarize what we could say a feminine way, I would say, thought that is more, and I don't know. If you ask me sincerely, okay, Shakti, what are you? The most sincere reply could be, I don't know. And yet, I am. And unless I know, the more I am. I have no is this reply to you. Thank you. Ciao.
In a very spiritual environment. My father is an Ayurvedic Vaidya doctor and also a yoga master. He's called Guru from a lot of people, and actually he somehow showed the way to many. And it was happening here in Italy. And from the part of my mother, she was the one that she was bringing me to India every year since I was very small for 3 months, learning all the Indian classical arts, such dancing and singing. So the environment was just perfect for something to develop inside. So I ended up at 26 years that I had everything that I could have, like a good name. I was singing and dancing in an orchestra, touring in Europe. I was having my degree in pharmacy, herbal technique, and I was being proposed of so many jobs and things, and wow. And then I broke completely. Completely. So even if I had the environment, the spiritual environment, something was missing. It was not taught to me how to give space for the feminine. Because also in my culture, even if the feminine is worshipped, the woman is kept down. So there was a big contradiction in my nervous system, in my muscles, in my thoughts, in my emotions. And so I had to, take layers and layers and layers and layers down and let this feminine be my teacher. And it's not easy. Because really, there is a gap of transmission, of knowledge, of the feminine, of the experience of the feminine. I missed it a lot. I didn't have the grandmother or the mother that could talk to me, teach me how to be a fully potential woman with all the meaning of it. That is so potent and vital and amazing and incredibly powerful. And it's really like a cycle, because we, men and women, we are so connected to the moon. And so once I psychically surrender to this feminine, then something happens. Is really I'm feeling I'm in a playground where I'm learning how to be in the body. A big spiritual, like all of us, big spiritual beings learning how to be in the result of the chemistry that happens in our body. How to deal with it, how to live with it. And it's so good that I don't have to do it alone. Because I thought I had to do it alone. But we don't have to do it alone. And big part of my journey in everyday life, it happens with my husband. In the relationship, there is where I learn a lot about myself. It's really there. It's the biggest mirror I ever had. It's not that I am the feminine and he is the masculine. Not at all. We really shift. And so the teachings is really there. And it always change. Always. It's never the same. And I give space to try to surrender to it. Just that. Thank you.
Hi. My journey has been very, very radical for 17 years. And I have both lived a life of being the mother of my son and gone through extreme dissolution into the very all-consuming forces of reality. The part of living that human life alongside really being taken by life, by truth, by reality, has sort of forced me to forge those keys, which both has made me able to be the depth and the extent of reality that I am, and also to live a very, very practical life. I found that the radicality in my surrender has brought me through many chapters, many logics of being. And despite whatever dissolutions of my identity I've had to face along the way, I'd say that the deepest challenge that I've had to face has been that of becoming human. Now, in embracing my humanness, I've also had to face the immensity of the human pain that we have accumulated and are accumulating through our denial of reality, through our denial of our vulnerability, through our avoidance, and all else, including our use, or in many ways misuse, of power. What I find to be my greatest challenge is to stay with the fact that I am a woman. That I'm not just the impersonal, I'm not just being, I'm not just reality. I'm also this woman. I'm this woman who has to live with the fact of that radicality. I'm also the woman who has to live with the fact of the benefit that I'm meant to bring here. And it's been a lot of testing, a lot of trial and error to find out how can reality be plugged into this in a way where I don't become, as a woman, a sacrifice, where I don't become that which is left out of the equation of taking care of everything. And this has touched me deeply because it feels to me to be the only sustainability I can find is to fully include myself as well as all of you. And this is where I find the humility. This is where I find the sustainability. This is where I find my vulnerability. To take the shape of the teacher, just letting go seems easy enough, but to come in as that being in this human body is and has been so fucking challenging. Simply because I am so prone to all of the very deep, very radical realizations, and it's hard for me to become human. Now, at the core of all of this, what I've found is that the dissolution between the light and the darkness is the greatest challenge, yes, but it's also the greatest gift. It's exactly that which allows me to not only be her as the big her, but also to be this little her which can sit here with you and actually present my humanity to you. It hasn't come easy. It has come through a breaking down over and over. Any objection I might have had to any aspect of my human existence. To come into such a deep love and compassion for myself, which I then can share with all of you, but which comes from being fully respecting and fully holding of that little bird, which is called Aisha. To be able to meet and greet you guys in where it's hard for you to be in the total acceptance of your own selves as these humans, but also as reality. And more than anything, I'd say that that's probably the biggest gift that I've found, despite whatever has been revealed unveiled, unfolded as this being of mine, human and otherwise. That the vulnerability and my humility has to come with the power which is attained by that deepening in through this. Because right there is the answer to all of our sustainability. Thank you.
So I have another question I want to ask. And I love what Nadeshwari you brought about the relationships and that's our greatest mirror. So my question is, and like I have discovered a lot in the relational field about her. And I would want to talk for a moment about her when she's roaring, when that energy comes through that is, you know, it's impersonal. On the other side of that is pure bliss, but to reach that, there is like a deep, deep roar. There is deep pain. There is deep... and so I am not sure where the question is going, but like I often find myself still wanting to take care of my beloved, protect him from that roar. And then I also know that her truth can only come through that deep honesty that has no concept of politeness or any form or shape. So if any one of you can like address the dance of letting her speak from that deep down truth that is actually love, but it can come across as very uncomfortable at times and messy and yeah, I don't know. And also anyone in the room who can resonate with that, I would love to hear. Bernie, all right. Yeah.
I sit here really naked. So naked. And it's not just these wonderful beings, women speaking. It's the throbbing heart of all humanity, knowing they're living a lie, and yet knowing they are already God. And I get on a tube train in London, and I used to wonder when I used to work in the West End many years ago, why was it I broke in a tube train? Why would I break? Why would I stand there and the train was packed and I would start to cry, literally cry, my body in so much pain, but my heart was going, yes, yes, yes. And this yes brought more pain. But the pain brought more love. And I would walk in the West End all over the place, and it seemed that as I allowed the totality of every tiny sinew of return of a human life to enter this breath. I died to be reborn, but I was not anyone dying to be reborn. It just got deeper and wider, but with it, this is my experience, with it came more pain. And I watched this life crumble to the ground, the one I knew. It crumbled completely. There was a little example of that yesterday because during so-called times of realization, my body just got up and left everything. There was no volition. It just got up and left a wife, 2 children, businesses, just up and left. I was actually given a free ticket to India at the time, but that's another story. But I want to go on with this. And it up and left, and I watched as whoever that was up and leaving everything, and the trauma of that and the devastation of that, but the necessity of that was so much bigger than someone called Bernie and someone called Nina, my then wife. It was much bigger. And I knew that in that moment of leaving, I was going to really enter this, and I could not turn away. At any cost, I had to walk into this and find out what this is. And what is this human dilemma? Yes. Because it relates to... Yes. Yes. I'm about to come to that. Yes. Yes. Because that inner roar was the total acceptance of what is, no matter how it came. No matter how it came, that's how it comes. This is how it comes. And this is what you have to go in.
And my question is, you, as in this man's body, how do you meet the roar of her? What is that for you? What is the experience? How do you listen? How this moves you or reminds you of who you are, her roar?
The willingness to die, 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 die. How can you express that? The willingness to let her roar touch every single sinew, not just of the body, but the entire life. It goes into the past, it goes into the future, it completely ravages everything. It's like Kali. There's so many images that I can speak of. It just consumes everything that you ever believed you were or could move by. It takes you over. But within that, this divine nature begins to live. In the death, the divine nature begins to live. And then you see it in the faces of every single person that you ever meet. The compassion for a child screaming on the street, or the love of a smile on the face. It becomes...
Is it okay if I interrupt you for a second? We have just the movement kind of passed. Thank you so much. But it just...
Thank you.
There was like a question about the roar of the feminine, and it, yeah.
Okay, Jujum? Yeah. To me, the roar is the roar of the oppression, like of years and decades of this oppression and imbalance, like imbalance regarding like the other energy that she cherishes a lot, the masculine, like decades of being trapped as witches and this and that. And also it's the roar of this relationship to life, which is about taking, modeling, transforming, rather than receiving, being in a much more intuitive and listening, it's also the roar of, like the rape of Mother Gaia. All these are roars for me. Yeah.
I try to bring it to a practical way of living this roar with my husband, because I felt it was really strong. And the time that I was roaring, then there was a big friction, and it took days to come down from that friction, and there were so many tears and screaming and whatever. All the village was involved every time.
We want a video.
And then I made a reaction on my husband. Also, he started to. It's not that that roaring is not at service. It is at service, because then also the other person started to have this teaching, no? But it was too much for my body. For this body, mine, now, it was too much. So what I learned in the years is that I had to be a little bit more intelligent and to give a little bit of structure to this roar. So, like to anticipate this roar, giving a little bit of space to topics, or to just explore something where that can roar could be something with the presence of my husband that was holding the space. So it happens now that it happened also yesterday, that it was little, no? That I needed to explore something about the presentation of this morning. So, but I didn't really ask him, I needed to explore, but it was clear to myself that I needed to explore. So maybe I asked him, can we talk about the presentation of tomorrow? And of course, he reacted, like he wanted to talk about it. But actually what I needed is a space where I could explore in that space without interruption, because for me it's so necessary to just be in that silent and see where the feminine goes, because it's not already there, it's not fixed. I need to have space and time to move, breathe, and then, yeah, this.
He shared that it looks like that when energy moves through a male form, the man wants to fix the problem, where all that the female side wants is to stay with the problem, and if that is stolen by him, there is a roar coming up. And what is my experience is that if it's possible to honor that roar, to honor that anger without judgment, without seeing it as like a problem, but simply really like the mother, the love that screams louder, is love that screams louder. When it's repressed, when that roar is repressed, becomes violence, becomes aggression. And there is no need for that. We are extremely conditioned in judging anger as negative. And this is, in my opinion, one of the reasons why it becomes then all the things and the words we see in the world. Please
and I just wanted to say, I think, at least in my experience, is not to stay with the problem, but to touch the truth in the moment.
That's what I meant.
That's what the roar
That's
is
what
calling.
I meant.
Stay with me, not with me, but that's the long game.
But this is what I meant exactly. I meant this, is stay with the problem in the sense like, let's feel it to the very end.
It's on. I'd say that in my experience, it seems to me that the roar of her, for one, it's kind of like a thunderclap. And the thunderclap in itself, it's like when we go into the human confusion, when we are in that field of human confusion, we can
be using our speech and our actions and so on in ways which are like, where it's all like foggy and fuzzy. And in my experience, it's right there that thunderclap, it happens like, and it cuts through everything and it goes straight to, I'd even say that the roar itself, it's like an energetic outburst. And the energetic outburst itself actually clears the field of that which keeps on running in circles around the fogginess. And that means that actually just on a very relational scale or basis, it's like all of a sudden everything is placed where it's supposed to be, so to speak, that one's consciousness returns to, okay, what's going on in myself, rather than this floating out and focusing on each other and like the whole confusion field. So in a way, I'd say my experience is that her roar is equal to a complete reset button.
Yeah.
In this body, there's a lot of roar. A lot of roar. And I can go on. But since Sand started, I started to realize and to live that there is no hair roar. I'm seeing that hair roar is exactly the same as his roar. And so it's one roar in my experience. There is not hair roar or he's pushing or I am seeing this in myself since Zen started, and I started to meet something that was not like I am a woman with roar, but I started to feel the love behind this and to meet him in me, in myself. And I saw that he was repressed also as her.
Yeah.
And he was roaring through her. This is my experience.
Thank you, because I had an experience that I wanted to share on this, but it felt like there was like a bit of it's not going in the direction that is wanted. And I'm just speaking of my experience of my endless roars and my mirror, as my husband and I have had this really clear role of being irresistible force and the immovable object for now 27 years. And I have to say that following you, for me, the moment in which I felt the roar really had an impact is when I heard a roar back. And that was a really, now I feel met.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
This, or the other way around, I had a very strong breakthrough with it. Many years ago, I was a very angry young woman. There were all kinds of conflicts that I couldn't resolve with my birth family, that I felt I never was heard. So one way of me to get heard was to blow up in the moment when I feel I'm not being heard. This angry woman that I was catapulted through the world, and I finally got to India, and I started studying Indian music with a teacher in Pondicherry. And it came to a point where I really blew up. It was very bad because respect for the teacher and so on. And he was just sitting there and smiled at me. And that smile was kind of stopping me in my tracks. And I said, don't you think this is bad that I'm, being so incredibly angry? And he said, no. He said, you're absolutely right. You're like Kali, because I can see that you really want to change something for the better, and you have to be very loud in that. And I think it instantly calmed me down, and I felt so incredibly accepted and heard and seen in that I think I didn't need to be so angry anymore. It really, and I think we are so judged, especially as women, when we want to be heard. And she's angry, she's a bitch, or it's that whole social way of women are not supposed to be angry, and that it was resolved that moment. That was really embraced and given space to, and even looked at lovingly and spiritually by a male presence.
Thank you. Lady on the bottom.
Oh, I have such a sense of us as a concert, all these lovely notes sounding, and the deeper the variety of notes, the better the concert. And a note I bring started last night when I sat next to Mari from Ireland. And it turns out we both have a Celtic witch inside, and she started sparking and cussing like a sailor and laughing like a witch. And it was a wonderful energy to remember in our feminine heritage. And I remember then that I used to tell stories in this Celtic tradition. And one I told feels like a note for this concert. And in the telling of the handless maiden, which is such a good story for women, she actually regrew her hands through a mighty roar, embodied roar. And in the telling of the story, I got to really do it in the safety of the role and an audience to receive it. But an embodied roar of grief and anger regrew the hands of the handless maiden.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah. I have a little note on this anger thing. In my experience, there's like a whole journey inside each of us, which awaits our coming into a uncomplicated relationship with that feeling in ourselves, along with every other feeling, of course, but specifically around the anger. Something that makes us able to feel the anger without the need to make it like a manifest push of like sliding to that the disagreement level in a way. And this is why I described it as this energetic push, because the energetic push can come without the need for the the physical manifestation of this. What I've discovered in coming to acknowledge and realize it's like an entire piano of feelings that is inside of us, our human beings. And when we come to a compassion to all of those parts of our own humanness, then our response can be a melody which is quite uncomplicated. It can be very, very energetical, but it can still be held in I'd say, like the compassionate, like the sweetness and the softness of woman, which very much also is what this world needs. It's not just the roaring and it's not roaring from a place of opposition. It's more like the roar of reality that gets to like flow, like as a vibration through everything, which as much holds the care for the vulnerability of the one in front of us, whether they are able to hold their own vulnerability or not. So in that sense, it's just, it's a little note to bring in here, because we could talk about this roar and we can celebrate it and it's wonderful. But we also have to see that inside of that, we also hold I'd say like a human responsibility of how our expression actually is, that it is filled with compassion, not just as the pushing or the pulling, but the actual compassion which includes the other in that sharing of that compassion, of that roar, of that blow. Not includes the other one's view, which might be this way or the other way, but the actual being of the other, the actual reality of the other.
Can I? No, I don't think it's short. Sorry. I want to relate to this that you just shared, again, for me in a practical way, because I was feeling all this roaring that it was stuck in my body and was killing me. I couldn't move my arm that much for months. They were always like really... And so I gave space to the autonomous nervous system to recalibrate, because I had to go in my body and to be soft. At first I had to release, but not in a cathartic way, because catharsis doesn't make new neural path, but in a contentive way. And so I'm going to show a very short practice that everybody can do. And I will ask Jerry if he can join me. Because we did it so many times. And because we don't want to be angry to each other, but I want to release actually what was in my body, that they were the punch that I never gave. All the punches that I never gave. So, very fast, I connect.
He's getting ready, just in case.
And I connect to a situation or a moment where I really felt this anger, this roar coming out because of something that was not feeling right for me, no? And then I do the movement, but I do it very slowly. I feel all the roar in my body. That is the key for the autonomous nervous system to release that energy. And then I feel. And it makes me really finish the movement, because a lot of time we didn't finish the movement. So this is very necessary. So he's giving me the resistance, the right resistance. So it's a really nice thing to do also together, because we are connected. And super simple, but very effective. Thank you.
Thank you.
And sorry, I didn't do the last part, but it's important that then I feel what is moving in the body. I give space.
Thank you. I would like to... Sorry.
Someone else? Okay.
I can wait. But it's a bit related to this. The thing is, I was saying before, we repressed a lot the anger, and that's where we come the problem. Because the thing is, it's not about expression, although that is necessary if there's been a lot of repression. It's about, exactly as you say, to arrive in a moment in which you can stay on the threshold, in which you don't repress anymore, and you don't express anymore, but you break through. And then you form, as you say, a new pattern. And to me, stay on that threshold is meditation, is exactly this, is the ability to stay on that threshold. Recognizing, though, that anger has been repressed, it's a thing. Sometimes we cannot get in touch with that feeling because it's so repressed. And then life gives us plenty of opportunity to see what is true of us. And we have to be very authentic and honest in see what is really here. But thank you, it's really nice. And the key is really this staying with reality and feel it. Then something different. We can create something very different, you know, with these beautiful forms. We can create really a new reality that is not based on separation. Thank you.
Can I add a note to that? Because right now we're speaking about anger. But actually this goes for every single feeling.
Yes, of course. Yes.
There are some specific feelings which we tend to have a very hard time feeling, and one of them is helplessness. And every time that we are like in overwhelm or helplessness, and we can't allow ourselves to feel that because that's not a movement waiting to get out, it's more like allowing for a complete inner like giving up of that which otherwise keeps going. Like it's almost like we built something up to prove ourselves not helpless and keep going. And it's like we need to come to that place where that feeling is also fully acknowledged.
Yes.
Because the moment that is met, again, life can be there in its natural form, and otherwise we will be in a constant battle inside, trying to prove ourselves to be more than the worthlessness, which is that feeling at the bottom of the whole thing. Yeah, I just want to bring that in there.
Thank you.
Hi. I'm a little bit scared because I see so many women, so much. But I really wanted to share, in total honesty, my male point of view about, because I really would like an integration between masculinity and femininity. And sometimes when maybe I misunderstand, but when it comes down as a battle between male and woman, I really feel not welcomed, because sorry.
Okay.
It's that I feel that also me.
Yeah.
I need some time with someone. As a male, I'm also a victim of that.
Of course.
So, when I can massage my sorrow or my vulnerability, or when I see other males and in my bones I feel like a sort of competition for women and power. So I'm a victim of that. I'm not a male raper or so I don't feel welcome sometimes. So I just want to say that as a representative of male, we are victims too, so maybe we can meet in a shared victimness of this and not put it as a... just that.
Yes.
I just wanna because it's I feel that sometimes for us it's easy to kind of bypass the feminine energy, like, you know, and link it directly necessarily to the female body. And again, this loss, this feeling of deep loss is within both male and female. It's not about competition or sexual, like, you know, framework. It's the loss of her as consciousness, the loss of of this intuitive and receptive side of us. We've been so much into taken from her, into that capitalistic way of doing and taken, and without necessarily listening to her. And this can only be done, I mean, that listening, only by both male and female. It's not about the female awakening as a feminist way of doing. This is obsolete, complete obsolete way of doing. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I want to respond. First of all, yes, that's so beautiful. And bypassing the fact that there is something about being in a feminine body which has been oppressed in the entire history, more or less, of us incarnated on this planet. There's something very specific about that. There's something very important about that. Anger is a liberator. Right? There is the force of anger. Why are all the wrathful protectors angry? There is this aspect of anger that cuts through the bullshit, that says enough, no more. And in that, it's important that there's specific ways in which it actually dismantles oppression, various kinds of oppression, that we have to be specific about too. So, completely, I just want to bring in this other level of discourse, which, sometimes doesn't get included, but I think it's important. So we all have been shaped by patriarchy, which has cut off the feminine within men and within women.
Yes.
We have internalized that kind of like patriarchal gaze. So as women, we are just as responsible for our own oppression. But the problem is most of the time, we can't even see it. It's invisible to us. And so it's almost like she sees it for us. She sees and responds to what we're not able to see and respond to, right? Like in this, she is the bullshit cutter.
In both men and
both men and women, so it's not to the inclusion of it, to the exclusion of the masculine, but to the recognition of the oppression within, of the silencing that has been happening for all of us, so that the excluded, the peripheral, the exiled can speak, the helplessness can speak, the anger can speak, the sorrow, the grief can speak. And I think very often anger makes space for that. So I just want to say there is something important about the fact that the feminine in a woman's body right now is speaking too. And the incredible service that so many men are doing and holding space for the feminine to rage, to grieve, to push against, to crumble. And it gives me a lot of hope.
Thank you.
I do want to say, though, that although I completely feel and honor your expression here, I must say that there is a bypassing of responsibility in women if we think that woman is just supposed to rage and men are supposed to hold, because men are fucking also this feminine which is wounded. So to the extent that we as women think that we are just to lash out whenever and so on and so forth, I feel it's just as much our responsibility to cultivate the space to be able to hold ourselves, to not have to put the responsibility of that holding over on our men or on the masculine part of the world's population. And seriously, I say this because what I find inside of that is a reality which is so, wow, I can't even express it, but it's like there is such a sweetness and a wholeness born out of the inner marriage, which contains both the willingness to hold ourselves and to feel ourselves to the bottom, both the masculine and the feminine. So I just want to put that out there too. Yeah.
Can I add something?
Yes.
I completely relate to what you say, of course, and really we have to take responsibility, and we can start again from our body. What does it mean that every month, every 2-3 days, the hormones change in our body? What does it mean to our feeling? The hormones. So hormones. Yeah. So if we have this constant change in our body, what does it mean to our feelings? of course there is something that changed. And of course, every month there is going to be a peak of anger. So I relate to that. I know that every month I will have a peak of anger. So I do a step back and I try to organize myself. What I do want to do with this anger, I can use the energy of the anger to do things, because the energy of the anger is the energy to do things, to change myself, my relationship, my family, my community, or whatever. But it's me that I need to understand what I want to do it. Because after that I create space with the anger, that I push, I let in and whatever, then I can be in another frequency. I will know that this peak will come down. And then I can, I don't know, relate to the frequency of abundance. Because in our menstrual cycle, when we have the peak of ovulation, there, what happens? I don't have a baby. Maybe I didn't do a project. So all the hormones in my body are like going to die. The message in my body is that I am dying, but we are not living it. We are doing, it's not happening to me, actually. I'm not dying. But actually there is a part of me that is dying. So I have to take care of this part that is dying. So after that I grieve this death, I will have new energy to do other things. So I really have to go into myself and study myself. And of course, I don't have to do it alone. In a polite way, or sometimes not so much polite, I can ask for help, because I don't have to do it alone. But I have to take responsibility of what is happening in this body that my spirit chooses to incarnate. And I am the only one that can do it. Thank you.
Can I say?
Yeah.
I think I wanted to say also something to my friend that spoke. Did we all see how that was the mother speaking? Okay, the mother was saying, I don't know how to express. I have to learn through this form how to express. I want to be honored. I want to be felt. I don't want to say it. I want to be feeling. We are not men and women. This is what I meant at the beginning. It doesn't mean that I don't honor this body. This body is beautiful. It is the temple of the divine, of course. But it's going away of the image, of the identity, the ego identity to be men and women, because otherwise we are feeling fragmented. We are feeling separated. And we miss one another so tremendously. If we realize this, then our relationship, men, women, any kind of relationship, will be the embodiment of that unity. It's listening to the mother, honoring the mother, is honoring the feeling that in our Western society has been so much repressed. And this creates an wholeness to me. So you are the mother. You are the mother speaking. Thank you.
About the unity we can feel in the embodiment. We know that is something that we have all just experienced. Science now call it intersubjectivity. We know that in the first instance we came at the light. There was a melting, completing melting with our mother. It was a fusion. There was no high. And this can be a natural way to be in this planet. We have only forgot it. But it's in our cells, in our aura, in what really we are.
in some ways, I know I'm not going to say anything new, but in a way, bringing together in a different angle. What I see is not, as has been said, not just a gender issue of what men should do, or what women should do, or what's happening for women and what's happening for men, but this process of allowing this, and speaking of this raw, this intelligence to express itself, which civilization has decided is inappropriate, it's impolite, it's too big, too unpredictable. The social agreement that is implicit in civilization, that we make each other comfortable. And so there's the discomfort in being so directly honest. And sometimes it's not even the words that are honest, it's the energy that's honest. It's the raw, the pure expression of energy. And when we get caught up in the words and what they're saying, we can actually end up in conflict, in disagreement, and justification, and in guilt and shame, and it's a confusion, an incredible confusion that happens in relationships, because the energy itself isn't being actually honored. The attention is going to, what does this mean about me? So the one who is bursting out is wanting to justify, you made me do this. And the one who's receiving is saying, no, you made me do whatever it is. So that it gets into this completely irrelevant conversation, when really the holding space is for life to readjust, for intelligence to be expressed at levels that the mind doesn't even understand. The words can be really such a cause of built-up resentments even. Then the next, the menstrual cycle and how the anger comes up, this can be, the next one refers back to how it didn't get expressed and understood and integrated the last time, and it can be very, very difficult in relationships if we don't come to this honoring of just the expression of the energy.
Beautiful. And I just want to say, to add to that, in my experience, the other side of that roar is the deepest silence I've ever touched. And that's pure awareness. Silence is really the essence of that roar. And it's a very direct path. There is the path of inquiring through meditation, but for me, roar sometimes is the most direct path to really my true nature and what's here.
Maybe I say something.
Were you going to share?
Oh, did you have something for what Saya was saying? No, okay. It just seems to me that the whole recognition through the relationship very much is about attaining the intelligence of movement, which both can go into the complete unity and can bring the even deeper of that love back to oneself. And it seems to me that in terms of where things get messy, it's actually when we're not agreeing to bring the love back to us, whether it feels uncomfortable, whether and what. It seems like we can grow together by allowing that movement of coming together deeper and then moving apart. And it's not necessarily, it's like to handle this with a maturity doesn't mean necessarily to to manifest a lot of things out of that, but to be able to move our even deeper that we have discovered together, because we can always become more. We are more when we're together than when we are apart. So the even deeper love that arises between us, when that is brought completely home, then that is where we grow and we become even more. And this is basically how our love deepens with each other. Because then when we come together, we are even more hollowed out by the love that we shared. And the fact that we allowed that love to have the impact on us, on hollowing us out more. So even in having said that, that actually brings us to having to train our awareness, train our consciousness pretty strongly to actually allow for a trust to arise, where we trust ourselves to let go of each other. We trust ourselves to allow ourselves to surrender deeper to our individuality as well as our unity, and to allow that fluctuation to happen, which makes us deeper and deeper in love together, and deeper and stronger standing in our individuality as well. And I'm saying this as a link to what was just said, because this about the part where the speech gets muddled and we're pointing outwards to watch each other and all of this, I've actually found that there's very, very little value in all of the pointing out that's going on. It seems to me that if everyone brings their entire human experience back to themselves, everything resolves around us.
Yes.
It's quite the joke in a way. Especially since we work so much on like solving things together, that actually if we solve it in ourselves, then actually it just clicks in with the other somehow. Anyway, yeah. A microphone there.
We are actually out of time. Is this a burning...
I was going to say, it's the dissolving of our self-image that brings us into the love we already are. That's what this is. That's what I'm hearing. Certainly it's the experience of this life. It's bringing each other those images, and they're on fire with the calling of what's deeper. So I'm loving this. I'm so grateful that I can share this with all of you.
Thank you so much,
Thank you.
everyone.